welcome to Taking Stock 67. Buckle up because I'm going to relate a rather personal story and a rather personal admission of complete cowardice, and all because of a discussion I got involved with online in regard to the involvement of faith with politics, the gist of which went something like this. Someone I was talking with in an online political discussion forum said that in her opinion Joe Biden will be okay as President of the USA so long as he keeps his faith out of his political decision making. Now, my response was to say that, well, Joe Biden's a practicing Catholic and a man of deep faith. His faith is what informs him and to a large extent made him what and who he is. His faith is not a bolt-on addition. It's bound to have an influence on his politics, as my faith has an influence on mine. In that case, said my interlocutor, you are what's wrong with religion in politics, and people like you and Joe Biden should stay out of politics. Well, bearing in mind this was in a group which consisted entirely of people who, as far as I knew, were on the same side of the political divide as me, I was quite startled to discover that I was disbarred from a political opinion because of my faith. Nonetheless, this person saw religion as an absolute no-no. She got mad when I pointed out the reasons she gave as to why she hated the involvement of religion in politics, because she said religion was, particularly for women, a tool of oppression and of a dogma which prevented freedom of thought and of action. Well, they were precisely the tools she was employing herself in order to exclude religion and religious people like me from politics. I said she had a right to be an atheist as well as a political activist, but I had as much right to be a Christian and a political activist. Only, she said, if I didn't bring my Christianity into my politics. It was a circular argument which, like any circle, was never ending, so I hopped out of it. But it made me wonder, and I've been pondering the question ever since, what unbelievably awful experience of religion or of religious people did she have at quite an early age, which has made her as an adult completely impervious to logic or reason when she encounters religious people, and especially clergy people like me, in the political arena, or indeed in life in general. What did someone do to her or say to her to make her feel that just the presence of a religious person in a political discussion group was justification enough for her to completely lose her sense of proportion, to make us completely anathema? Oh, sorry, that's a religious phrase. Never mind. I'm never going to know, because apart from anything else, she hadn't been in any sense moderate in her previous statements, so I doubt if she would have responded very graciously to that question, which I didn't ask because of how she'd responded to the rest of the discussion. Now, we've all heard horror stories, I'm sure. Some of us may have lived through them. Of course, I don't know, but I'm willing to bet that in her mind are all kinds of caricatures, and even though they may not be accurate in every case, they probably aren't based on pure fantasy either. What we encounter for the first time, especially when we're young, well, it imprints, doesn't it? It can affect us for the rest of our lives, for good or for ill. And it's through the lens of that experience that we see all similar experiences. Here's where the cowardice comes in. You see, you might have missed Taking Stock on Tuesday. Well, I hope you did, because there wasn't one. I would normally record it on Tuesday morning, write and record it on Tuesday morning, but I had a dental appointment for some rather pressing and radical treatment this past Tuesday, which I'd been nursing throughout the first lockdown and beyond. And finally I had to admit defeat, and I had to go to my dentist, lockdown or no lockdown. I thought I would write and record this, or Tuesdays, on Tuesday afternoon, but I underestimated the physical effects on an ageing body of having a dental bridge cut and a tooth extracted. Taking Stock went by the board, I'm afraid, as did most of the rest of Tuesday and pretty much the whole of Wednesday. My dentist surgery is exactly 100 miles away from where I actually currently live, door to door, because it's in one of my former circuits, which I lived in for 7 years and which I left 16 years ago. Now, it might sound crazy to you that I would make a 200-mile round trip to visit a dentist, but there's a reason, and that's a simple reason. The reason is that dentists terrify me. When I was about 5 years old, my best friend, I put that in inverted commas, who lived in the house on the other side of our back fence, decided it would be a good idea to throw a house brick. which he'd found lying around in his garden, over the fence into our garden. Awkwardly for him and painfully for me, I happened to be on the other side of the fence playing quietly on my own and in direct line with the downward trajectory of the brick, which struck me a, thankfully, glancing blow on the head, but which caused me to shut my jaw so abruptly and so hard that I snapped a tooth. Now, aside from the probable concussion, I don't remember much for the next 10 minutes or so, I was screaming in pain and with blood pouring from my mouth. So my mum rushed out into the garden, saw what had happened, or guessed, carried me up the road to the dentist and about 400 yards from our house. The dentist decided I needed the tooth extracted and proceeded to attempt that feat without benefit of anaesthesia. I can still hear his Irish accent as he said to my mother, "Sure no, he won't need that. He's a big brave boy, aren't you now, little Alan?" He wasn't much of a judge of character, I have to say. His nurse nearly had to peel me off the ceiling when he drilled into the remains of my tooth, and when she let go of me at the end of the procedure, I slipped them all, including my mum, and was off down the road to our house like a greyhound out of a trap. I never went back. In fact, I didn't go back to a dentist at all again until I was 18, and only then because my girlfriend dragged me along to her dentist when one of my teeth partially disintegrated in the middle of a rugby match when I got smacked in the mouth by a meaty opposition second row after I'd had the temerity to score a try. Now, I have to say that ever since, my dental treatments have been, in military terms, a continuous rearguard action on the part of the brilliant dentists that I have since trusted. And I can tell you that in nearly 50 years, they number precisely 4, despite all my moves around the country. See, I'm still terrified of dentists, which is why if I find a surgery I trust, I am perfectly willing to spend 16 years driving 100 miles each way to get treatment there. In other words, I am still living with the consequences of a defining experience in a small dental surgery in about 1962. We all have to work very hard to overcome bad first impressions. I never managed to have a better than awkward relationship, for example, with the vicar's wife in Barkingside, who mistook me for a criminal yob because the first time she met me I had just gone into her church in full motorcycle leathers and a helmet, having just jumped off my Yamaha motorbike outside. The fact that I was the local Methodist minister appeared to cut no ice, well, until she saw the dog collar under the leathers. What impression do we make on the people we meet? What burden are we actually unknowingly carrying, which has been placed on us by the inconsiderate behaviour of previous encounters for that person with people like us? Well, we can never know. All we can do is be authentically ourselves and hope that that's enough to allow Christ to be in us in an unencumbered and authentic presence for the person with whom we are interrelating. All of the dentists in whom I have placed my trust have been those who have recognised my fear and rather than dismiss it, have recognised it, accommodated it and assuaged it. Good thing too, because as my wife can attest in very recent experience, I am still capable of fleeing a dental surgery like a greyhound out of a trap and not stopping until I reach the safety of our car. As Christians, we need to be conscious of how our faith has got things wrong in its dealings with the world over centuries and recognise that we carry that history in every encounter we have with the fearful. We have a duty not only to acknowledge that responsibility in that history, but to do all in our power to ensure that no one, no matter their gender or sexuality, sexual identity, race or creed, need ever again feel impelled to flee from our company. Stay safe, people.